keep back in mind that particular scenario when the entire Indian people from different parts of the country, of different religion, different culture, different language, they were all united together to fight out British imperialism. Now, what does the imperialism means? Imperialism is really the final result of capitalism. And capitalism means that one larger section of the society and the community will give their labor, and the minor section of the society will earn profit out of that labor. The basic concept of capitalism is to earn profit and more profit. Keeping that in mind, the traders from London, England, East India Company, and many other foreign colonial countries like Portugal, Dutch, many of them had invaded Indian territory for the purpose of doing business. India had multi-faceted natural resources, and one of the best natural resources of India was the human resources. Our artisans were so skillful, their products were very much liked by the bigger consumer world. We had spices, we had other natural agricultural resources, we had rivers around that made this country fertile. Therefore, the East India Company go on speaking.
Yes, speak.
The East India Company, the advanced capitalist country, they had invaded India to gain benefit out of the Indian artisans and Indian laborers. And in the name of doing trade, I'm just giving a little bit of roots of little history. They had won over then the Mughal regime or the fragmented Indian landlord regime. India had many Maharajas. You see Aham Maharaja in West Bengal, you will find many Maharajas in the northern part of the country, many Maharajas. These Maharajas were nothing but the feudal landlords. They were in fact ruling and, if I may use the expression, looting the Indian human resources. The cultivators used to produce, and the benefit of those products were being enjoyed by these landlords. And ultimately the Mughals came, all these feudal regime, they were controlling different parts of India in a different manner. But when the British traders came, they wanted to exploit the Indian community as a whole. And in the name of their exploitation, they had to build up many civil structures, they built civil infrastructures. The first one of them was the railway lines. They had founded the railway tracks. They wanted to unite the entire India geographically. And while they had intended to unite India geographically, in that course, you see, as a matter of science and basic rule, the Indian people got united. And when the different anti-British struggle from different parts of the country, everywhere the people were getting agitated and fighting, but since they were fragmented fight, they could not achieve success. Mahatma Gandhi, when appeared in the scene, he had the tremendous amount of capability to unite all these struggles. He had developed a new culture wherein he could organize even the marginal people, the poor cultivators, the so-called Achyuts, he called them Harijan, all of them could be united in the name of Satyagraha, and Indian independence was practically going to be seen. And there are many movements. At one point of time, you must know that Attlee was the Prime Minister when the Indian independence was announced. He was asked by the then Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court, Justice P.B. Chakraborty, How come, Mr. Attlee, you could declare that India would be given independence by 1947 when your previous Prime Minister of England, Churchill, said that we are not going to surrender our right of exploitation of India because we have huge amount of revenue earning from India. And Churchill very arrogantly said that I was not given the premiership to ensure the decline of Maharani's empire. But the Indian people struggle of different form. We call it Satyagraha, the non-violent. There are violent, militant nationalist movement. There are people fought like Master Dashur Joshi in Chattogram, Bhagat Singh, Bhagha Jyotin, and many other sector-wise armed struggle could develop. And this armed struggle, along with the peasants' revolution, in fact, everywhere the peasants were revolting. And you see in the Assam, West Bengal, then this sort of geographical division was not that sharp. The Tebhaga movement was a very huge Kisan movement. And also the spinning workers, the cotton of Indian population, I mean Indian creation was of high quality, and that quality of cotton were very much favored and liked by the British people, and they had a business worldwide. The Indian cotton standard was much better, higher than the cotton prepared by the Manchester. They also had revolted, and ultimately it culminated in the revolt of Royal Navy people. Then the British thought it's very dangerous for them to continue anymore. And in the meantime, also you think of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who had led the Indian National Army, and that Indian National Army almost had reached the Manipur. Keeping all these factors in mind, the British government decided it was better that we should hand over the power. They call it transfer of power. You will find as a unique method, the Indian independence was really declared by the British Parliament in the name of Transfer of Power and Indian Independence Act. Then when these things were going on, the question came up, how would India, after becoming free from British rule, run the country? Indian people didn't have much experience of running the country. We were under the control of Mughals, Sultans, we were under the control of British. Therefore, Indian people as a whole had no experience of running the country. But during the freedom struggle, the Indian population, particularly lawyers, I can name few important lawyers. You must have heard the name of Chittaranjan Das, a great lawyer from Bengal, who had launched Swaraj movement, and also Motilal Nehru, the father of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he was also a lawyer. They had took up the challenge. They said that we can form our constitution for future governance. And they had also prepared a constitution committee on the Swaraj party. Keeping that in mind, it was decided that India will draft its own constitution, and a constituent assembly was formed, taking representation from different sections of the community throughout the India. And the members of the Constituent Assembly, if you see, you will find that probably the best of the intellects then which was available with us, they had constituted the Constituent Assembly. And this Constituent Assembly had a long debate. The interesting part, since all of you are lawyers, you will have to come across with these documents. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, then he was one of the front runner of the freedom struggle. He proposed the first original proposal constitution was going to be moved, the base paper, where he proposed that the Constituent Assembly, that was his iconic deliberation. The Constituent Assembly members were addressed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru saying that please don't forget that the Indian freedom struggle and Indian freedom could be achieved because of the great contribution of the farmers of the country, because the agrarian revolt was one of the main plank of Indian independence. Don't forget that the Indian farmers had contributed, Indian workers had contributed. Therefore, when you are making a constitution, you have to keep in mind their contribution for the independence of the country, and the constitution should be a reflection of their dream and desire. What were their dream? Their dream was that the Kisans will be free from the yokes of zamindars. Zamindars were the exploiters. They were exploiting for the British. Therefore, the Kisans would be free from the exploitation of the zamindars. The working class would be free from the exploitation of the employer, that is the capital, and the Indian people as a whole fought for the independence. Because when the independence movement was maturing, then unfortunately, two nation theory was floated, one by RSS, another by Muslim League. And with this floating of two nation theory in the name of religion, unfortunately, with the tacit support of British government, the India got divided. A portion of India was divided in the name of religion. I will not deal with that part now. They got divided. They had formed a new state called Pakistan. But Pakistan could not remain a united state in the name of religion. That is the experience of life. But then at that juncture, the Indian constitution was being discussed in the Constituent Assembly. A large number of people who were in the Constituent Assembly was advocating that since the majority of the Indian population allegedly believed in Hinduism, therefore it should be Hindu state. Equally, some portion of the Islam community who did not join the fundamental ideas of Jinnah, they said it cannot be a Muslim state, it should be it cannot be an Hindu state, then it should be again divided. While this sort of deliberations were going on, one interesting voice came out that was from the Adivasi sectors. Mr. Jaipal Singh, who was representing the Adivasi community in the Constituent Assembly, he very strongly condemned. He said, so for my recollection goes from the Constituent Assembly debate, that you people are fighting in the name of religion, but none of you are Indian. You are all foreigners, you are all invaders, whether the Hindus or the Islams, whatever might you call, you are all invaders. And historically that is true, that was true. Then he said that we are the genuine Indians, we means Adivasis. And we do not believe in a structural religion. We believe in nature. We love nature. We worship nature. Therefore, we are the basic inhabitants of India, and please stop fighting in the name of religion. And after all these deliberations, the constitution was adopted. And the first line of the constitution, as you all know, is called "We the people of India." Very significant word and very significant expression. When "we the people of India" is said, then it was taken into consideration that the Indian territory, which was coming into effect from 15th August of 1947, there anyone and everyone from any part of the country is a part of the constitution. And we the people of India, the constitution says, they gave unto themselves. They say we adopt, we the people of India adopt. Whether I am in Assam, in Guwahati, Jaldapada, whether I'm in Kerala, whether in Bengal, whether in Mizoram, anywhere, we all decided to have a constitution. What is the constitution? What would you do? Then they say we will form a democratic republic. Democratic republic means it would be a government of the people and by the people. This democratic republic would be constituted, what for? Then they set up their objectives. The first was to achieve political justice, economic justice, social justice. These three important targets, economic justice, political justice, social justice, that has to be achieved by the newly formed republic. And while you are trying to achieve that, the foundation of that achievement should be freedom of thought and freedom of expression. Unless the people can decide independently, if they don't have any freedom to think of their own situation and think of their future governance, then there will be nothing. There was freedom of thought and freedom of expression. I sit down in my room and going on thinking, it is not going to give you result. You have to also express. And also an important contribution was made. This was the special contribution by Mr. Ambedkar, was the dignity of person. We live in fraternity. All the people of the country will be equally treated. All are friends. And everybody has his dignity. I cannot point to X and say that you belong to lower caste. You don't have dignity. You don't have right to enter temple. You don't have right to take water from my desk. All these things were kept in mind, and that was the purpose of Constitution. Now the question came up. Mr. Ambedkar said, when we are entering into the arena of republic, we give everybody one vote and one right with equal value. That's the political justice. You just get the concept of political justice, you will easily follow what is the other parts of this constitution and what are the basic structure. He said that when we shall go for vote, everyone will have equal right and one vote. Then he himself said, would it really be correct saying that equal vote for everyone with equal value? It cannot be so. He said the person who has to earn his food, and for earning his food he has to depend on X, then the poor person who has to earn food, he cannot exercise his vote independently, that of the influence of the Y on whom he has to depend for his food. That's why, what is? Okay, I have to finish this. Therefore, the question was, Ambedkar said, unless we secure economic justice, then this political justice would be just a illusion. And he said very categorically, unless we can secure economic justice, the political democracy would be at peril. Today, we are facing that situation. Therefore, the basic structure is the republic. Basic structure is we all people of India. We the people of India, no religion, no caste, no classification. Basic structure is social justice. What does social justice mean? Social justice means that there would be no social backwardness. There would be no division in the society by which you can claim that I am a superior human being because of my religion, because of my caste. You are a lower caste person. Unfortunately, what has happened, we have to see empirically what is happening in our country and why we say that the basic structure is under attack. You must have noticed that one young girl, Bilkis Banu, she was raped. She was raped and her pregnancy was forcefully aborted. The rapists were penalized by the court of law. Now, in our judicial system, somebody is penalized. At the same time, law empowers the government to release them on the basis of the government's consideration they have been reformed. That Bilkis Banu has been leading a very tremendous, traumatic life all throughout. The rapists were punished by court, by the BJP government at Gujarat has released them. Releasing them on the plea of good conduct. And what next was done? They were given ovation in a public meeting, saying that since they belong to Brahmin category, they cannot rape. How does this come? This comes from a philosophy. You see, in Manu Sanghita, it is categorically stated that the upper class Brahmin, they can enjoy the so-called lower caste women. And that enjoyment of the women will empower the women to get upper class status in her next life. Just think of the sexual impropriety, the social impropriety of the basic fundamental human rights. So this was the concept which they wanted to introduce. And they have released those rapists. That matter is now before the Supreme Court. I don't know what the Supreme Court would do. And the another basic structure remained that while we are implementing this economic justice, social justice, political justice, and other justice, freedom of expression, freedom of thought, there would always be a conflict. Conflict between the executors and the executed. And who is going to make the balance? That's why we say the Republic has three pillars. One is legislative, another is executive, another is judiciary. In our country, unfortunately, there is no difference between the legislative function and executive function. I give an example. You cast a vote for a person who are elected as MLA, and they go to the assembly. Do they discuss the law in details? No. The law is drafted by the executives, that is placed in the assembly or in the parliament. By brute majority, that law is passed. Therefore, the executive's function gets legislative sanction. And that law, which is drafted by the executive, is now implemented by the executives. Therefore, the executives and legislatives, they have practically become one wing. And that law, when implemented against the citizenry of the country or anyone, our Constitution, Article 21, right to life, speaks of anybody, irrespective of whether citizen or not. Therefore, the concept of right to life under the Indian Constitution is a right to life of anybody. He may be a citizen, may not be a citizen. He may be even an alien, but his protection of right to life of existence, right to life means education, right to life means health, right to life means shelter. All these things have to be ensured and protected by the government. Now we are facing a situation, particularly in Assam. It's a horrible situation. Every day you are noticing that in the name of a particular political philosophy, I would very categorically say, in the name of or in the saturation of the RSS ideology of Hindutva, that is Hindu Rashtra, the government is functioning. What has happened very recently here in the name of, you see, the underage marriage, what are they doing? They are in fact killing the concept of freedom of thought, freedom of expression. Have you seen what had happened? The Assam government has in fact demeaned not only the Assam government but the entire Assamese people. When one of the leader of a particular political party, he was brought down from the aeroplane on the plea that he has made certain statement against the Prime Minister. Any problem?
No, take us. Come on.
No problem.
Voice loss really. Network disruption will let a message.
But I find somebody is standing in front. Anyway, therefore, now the question is that who is going to rein them? যখন একটা পাগলা ঘোড়া দৌড়োয় পাগলা ঘোড়াকে সামাল দেয় কে যে ঘোড়া চালায়? In our country, the judiciary is the another pillar which really maintains the balance. And everyone who has any grievance against the state of the executive, they can get their remedy only before the court of law. And the court of law becomes effective when the lawyers are well aware and well equipped with the constitutional principles and guidelines. In recent times, you have noticed. What happened? Can you hear me?
Yes. It is audible.
Yes, audible, but somebody is standing in front of the camera. I don't know what he's doing. I can't follow.
We are unable to hear you.
Oh, you're not. I'm not audible to you. Sorry.
Projector problem. That your problem है.
I think that's your
We are
local
hearing you.
problem.
We are hearing you.
So you might be hearing me, but the
Please
people
raise
for
volume.
whom I'm really speaking, they can't hear me.
Raise volume.
আমাদের প্রজেক্ট করব
আরো
আমার বলবো আমার
আরো একবার এক্সিট করে মোবাইল
হ্যাঁ অডিও
আরো এক্সিট করে মোবাইল লিভ এন্ড কাম ব্যাক
শিকদার সাহেব একদিন একটা উইকেন্ডে প্রোগ্রাম করুন, আমি গিয়ে এটা ভালোভাবে বলে আসবো। এইরকম ডিস্টার্ব হলে তো হয় না।
There is no problem. I think your system. Try again.
Because we are bringing up the souvenirs.
Oh, yes, I will. Let me finish.
Yes, after finishing this convenient time.
Sure. I'm here all day, don't worry.
Yes.
They are waiting.
I will leave him tomorrow evening. I don't know.
In the meantime, please come over to the dais and receive a memento of the organization.
How long?
I don't know, but in the meantime, he will correct the same.
Let them get ready.
Yes, you continue. You just finish this. Okay, you go here. I will go. I will go.
কি বলুন? তাড়াতাড়ি দিন, আমি একটা কাজে আছি।
Okay, sir. Okay.
এটা আশ্চর্য হওয়ার কিছু নেই, এটা গোটা দলটাই তো এরকম চুপচাপ সঙ্গীত। সুতরাং এটা আশ্চর্য হওয়ার কিছু নেই, না হলেই বরং অবাক হতাম। সবাই এর সঙ্গে যুক্ত, আসল লোক।
Okay. Please check it audio.
Yes. শিকদার সাহেব, একটা কোনো এক শনি রোববার সামনের মাসে ফিক্স করুন, ভালো করে বলে দিয়ে আসবো। এই এত ডিস্টারবেন্স
Okay.
হয়, একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট সাবজেক্ট। Yes,
Okay,
may
sir.
I continue?
Please.
Yes. So therefore, who is going to guard the guardians, if I may use that expression? The executive and legislative, they have become one team. And this one team combinedly is trying to destroy the basic ideas of constitution. We are far from economic justice. Every day economic disparity is growing up and up. And you have seen during the pandemic, the situation became so evident and so worse. More than 3.5 crore of people have gone down to below poverty line. And Adani became number 1 or number 2 in the list of the global billionaires. Therefore, we are running a republic in such a fashion that the disparity is gradually growing up and up, and the gap between the poor and the rich is going up and up. The resultant effect is the basic concept of Indian constitution of economic justice is now become just a mirage. And when you find that this is a mirage, you have to fight it out. When you are fighting out, and for the poor people, somebody is opening up his ideas and mouth, he is taken into custody. Tomorrow you may not know that Mr. Sikdar may also be taken into custody. That why are you arranging this sort of seminar, which seminar speaks against the Modi government's philosophy and ideology? Therefore, the constitutional basic concept of freedom of expression and freedom of thought is being taken away. Freedom of thought can only be expected when people are given education. Unless you enlighten the people with the knowledge, they cannot have freedom of thought. And you see now the education is gradually being taken away from the state control to the private management control. Once the education goes under the control of the private management, then it becomes costlier, it becomes dearer. The common man, the poor people, a son of a rickshawala or a son of a panwala or a son of a majdoor cannot go to school. He cannot go for higher learning. That's why the different scholarships for the minorities, for the lower classes, for the downtrodden people, these are being taken off. And one of the important research in university was JNU. And you have seen how the JNU scholarships is being curtailed. The Jadavpur University, one of the finest technical universities in the country, they are suffering from fund crisis. By this process, the education system, which was easily approachable by the common man, now is being made costlier by private universities and private institutions. These basic ideas of constitution, when are sought to be disturbed, gradually taken away, the only recourse remains to judiciary. The court intervenes. Court has explained what would mean by Article 21. Court has explained what would mean by Article 14. Court had explained what would mean by Article 16. The constitutional courts are there to guard the constitutional principles, constitutional ethos. Nowadays, these are under attack. This attack has to be definitely been faced by the judiciary. And the judiciary functioning depends on the independence of it. Independence of what? Independence of executive control. Article 50 of the Constitution of India says that there should be separation of power. The executive and judiciary should be completely different and independent. And for this purpose, there are so many cases that the judges' appointment should be independent and they should not be controlled or influenced by the executive. Now you have seen the present scenario, the government of India through its law minister, through its prime minister, through the vice president of the country are gradually attacking the judiciary. This judicial appointment, there are problems. For that we are fighting. As you know, from and on behalf of All India Lawyers Union, I have presented a private bill that for the appointment of judges, for their conduct and transfer, there should be independent constitutional body, neither being controlled by the judges only and not being controlled by the executive. These are under process and being discussed. But till then, when the system of collegium has been found to be so far, if not 100% satisfactory, but more or less satisfactory, that has to be followed. But the government of India is trying to dismantle that. There are many instances. You people have got the experience. I am not going to burden you with the instances that the persons whose names were found to be inclined to RSS ideology or BJP ideology, they have been elevated without any delay. And the persons who are not akin to the ideology of BJP, their appointments have been delayed and delayed deliberately. I can give one example. Now they are trying to control the Supreme Court through the appointment of judges by superseding and bringing those who would ultimately become Chief Justice and control it. I just give an example. Take the case of Justice Dimankar Datta. He is a very upright judge. We have seen him in Calcutta High Court and also in Bombay High Court. In ordinary courts of business, he ought to have been elevated, but to stall his elevation, another judge who was elevated to the Supreme Court, who is younger to Dipankar Datta so that he can become Chief Justice. And his elevation was by superseding 52 judges. The effective, once he becomes a Chief Justice, he will be able to control the business of the Supreme Court. This is the way they are trying to disturb the existing system. And these are the basic structure of Constitution. If these structures, the independence of judiciary, the obligation of economic justice, the obligation of social justice, these are frustrated, then whole Indian constitution become just a piece of paper. Don't forget, the constitution is not just a piece of paper. It's not just a document. Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan once said, the constitution of a country reflects the ethos of the country, the philosophy of the country, the soul of the country. Our Indian philosophy was reflected in the multiculturalism by saying, we the people of India. Now that is also being under attack. Therefore, I would conclude, because of these disturbances here and there, that we have to save the constitution as our heritage and inheritance property. We fight for a piece of land saying that this is my paternal property, I have every right to manage it. I would appeal to you, this constitution is given to us by our forefathers after a lot of struggle. Now we have to keep it with full zeal as if this is my paternal property and I have to secure and uphold this principle. That would be the basic duty of the lawyers. With these few words, I thank you all and I desire to meet you once again physically if you fix up another date for another seminar. Thank you.
No questions. No questions from the students.
What's a disturbance? Is it physically I see eye to eye, I can guess it.
Hey, leave. Leave the page.
Absolutely nice.
Each and every point. Which is a convenient time.
Now I'm over.
Sir, thank you, sir. Fantastic delivery, sir. And the audience is listening your deliberation in a pin drop silent. And we will meet you again physically in this subsequent event. We hope that you will come and we will meet our members, activists of the ILO. Thank you, sir. Nana, Niki?
Voice of Jai, thank you. State of Jai, thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Moi disu ate disu. Ate disu.
And here,
Mobile disu.
yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Ate disu.
Bye bye. Very good. I can leave the
Sir,